How'd you find out they were engaged? What do you think of the bride and groom? Say something nice to the newlyweds. You don't want to be that guy or that girl. You want to be able to ask questions that really dive into that couple's story. I see this in my comments all the time. People always asking, what questions should I ask at a wedding? What do you ask, Justin? What do you ask the bride? What do you ask the groom? How do you get these responses? And I always reply with the same thing. It's not about the question, but it's about the story. What answers are you trying to get? Almost do this in like reverse engineering. Sometimes the easiest way to ask a good question is to know the response that you actually want. So if I knew I needed somebody to say that they're having the best time of their life, I wouldn't just walk up to them and say, hey, you having fun today? Because all they're gonna say is yes. Maybe I'll give them a statement. This is my favorite thing, is actually giving people statements, not actually a question. So I'll come up to somebody and just be like, yo, man, we finna have fun tonight. And they respond with the same energy, the same type of answer. It's crazy how this psychology works, because if you get fixated on asking the right question, like, oh, I want to ask everybody, are you having a good time? Or how do you know the bride and groom? Or when did you find out they proposed? When you think of these questions, all you're going to do is get stuck on those questions. You won't be able to explore and actually have conversations with people. Key word right there. Conversate. Say it with me. Conversations. You gotta learn how to talk to people. It's not just about the questions, but can you actually talk to a stranger? Can you walk up to them and spark a conversation and it feel like you already knew that person for years? If you can't, that's where you gotta start, because asking good questions, any director asking good questions or deep, intimate questions is gonna come with comfortability. If you're not comfortable when you go up and be able to talk and address people, you're never gonna be able to ask good questions that invoke story. You're gonna stay behind the templated questions. What's the templated questions? How'd you find out they were engaged? What do you think of the bride and groom? Say something nice to the newlyweds. You don't want to be that guy or that girl. You want to be able to ask questions that really dive into that couple's story. So the only way to do that is to get comfortable and be good at conversations. Just spark a conversation. Talk to people. Now, the last thing I want to point out is you got to be able to be an active listener. Now, trust me, for all my fellas out there, we don't do this too well. We hate listening. We like to just keep talking. But I'm telling you right now, the best trick that you can do right now is learn how to listen, absorb the information. Don't always just go ask a question, hey, how do you feel today? And then they answer, and then you change the subject on them. That's bad listening. You got to be able to hear what they say. If they go left, you go left. If they go right, you go right. You can't just assume that this is how it's going to be. You got to let them answer your questions. You've got to listen, soak it in, because not only that, they might say something that actually doesn't have any relevance to the story, but they may give away key pieces that does. Things that make you go, oh, I got to go talk to the bride now about da-da-da-da-da. Whoa, let me go talk to the groom about da-da-da-da-da. You found that out because you asked this person one question and they gave you all this information. All right, so I ranted long enough. How do you actually ask better questions? I know that's why y'all clicked on this video. You're expecting me to give you some gold nuggets, right? You want the perfect script on how to ask good questions? Well, it ain't gonna happen. I'm gonna teach you how to just be comfortable and get better. The first thing is asking open-ended questions. Now, an open-ended question is something that makes people answer with more than just a short response like yes or no, all right? Tell me about, describe a time, right? How? Things like that. Asking questions that begin with those words instead of like, do you have kids? Like, you gotta stay away from the do's. Do you have this? Did you feel this way? You don't wanna give them a reason to be short. You've gotta figure out ways to ask questions. And this is something that's gonna take practice and time. But again, going back to what I said earlier, is you gotta be comfortable enough to be able to lean in and talk to people and ask these questions. Sometimes the questions and the conversations get dark. You've got to go there with them and then bring it all the way back. This is what makes the difference between a good director and someone who's more of a novice. You've got to have the ability to go any direction that they want you to and then come all the way back to where you need them to be. That's a good director. Now, when you're asking these questions, always have the story in mind. Now, I say this all the time because a lot of us, we don't really know what the story is. Do you know what your couple's story is when you show up? Or do you just know that they met 9 years ago on Tinder? A lot of people only have that to go off of. I'm gonna be honest, so do I. Most of my weddings, I usually only know 1 or 2 facts, and I spend the entire day connecting and learning more and more. This is where I say being a good active listener. I may ask the mom about, oh, did you know that they met on Tinder? How did you feel about that? And then I'll get her input, then I'll take that knowledge, go back to the bride and say, hey, your mom really wasn't a fan of the fact that you met on Tinder. Were you afraid to tell her about that? Then I'll take that answer and I'll go to the groom and be like, her mom and her both said this. Did you know about that? And now I'm connecting all these moments, right? I'm connecting these sound bites, building a story that I know is authentic to them, but it doesn't feel like the cookie cutter. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Justin. It's not like that. It's actually them. It's their story in the film. And I'm doing this by weaving and wobbling, going through the family, learning about them, connecting the dots, being a good active listener, and asking open-ended questions. Now, this is something that's going to take time for a lot of people, but the more you do it, the easier it'll be. And the easiest way that I like to tell people is my old-fashioned mirror exercise. I do this all the time. I kid you not. There's behind the scenes of me somewhere, and I'm just looking in the mirror, and I'm like, I'm talking to myself. I'm literally doing this because I'm practicing. Okay, I need to get used to asking open-ended questions. We grow up asking short-ended questions. That's just a fact. We grow up going, can I? Do you? All the time. We don't ask, how about this? Tell me about that. We don't do these things regularly, which makes it extremely more difficult. Now, another thing that I really, really want to drill into everybody's head is the fact that you're now a filmmaker who's not going to be standing back in the shadows. Now, this is the hardest part for a lot of people. This is the biggest pill to swallow, is that you're no longer the introverted guy in the corner hoping that nobody spots you. No, you're a director. You've got to get in their face. You've got to talk to them. You've got to be able to lean in and empathize with them. Oh, wow. And then you got to be able to get them hyped, right? Y'all, come over here real quick. Yeah, come over here real fast. I want everybody right here to have fun. On the count of 3, y'all ready? Look right here at the camera. 1, 2, 3. Like, you got to be able to do it just like that quick. And if you can't, this is where you practice. This is where it starts. Right at home or in your home office or wherever your family is, go to your family's house and practice talking to them with open-ended questions. You can do it right now with your mom. Mom, when you had kids, if you're the oldest, when you first had kids, like, tell me about what was going through your mind when you found out you were first pregnant. I bet you the answer she gives you is gonna blow your mind because of how you asked her. You didn't just say, did you wanna have kids? No. Yeah, you said, tell me what was going through your mind when you found out you were pregnant. You just asked an open-ended question and you pinpointed it to a moment in time. These are key things to asking good questions. All right, so I've been going in on this video. Hopefully this kind of helped, but the biggest point I'm trying to give y'all is that it's not about the questions you ask. It's about being able to have a conversation. If you can get comfortable talking to people, and I know a lot of my introverts watching this video, you're like, that's a deal breaker for me. It's not, because being an introvert or an extrovert, I said this at the JPM bootcamp, does not matter. Being a good director means you have good communication skills. Every director can communicate, which is why their movies blow up and they do well, right? So if you can get comfortable talking and having a conversation with people, that will always get you the story. The more that you try to fixate on these perfect questions that are always gonna drive emotion, the more templated and cookie cutter your films are gonna feel. You've got to talk to people, know who they are, reason with them, because every personality is going to be different on camera. You've got to be able to connect with them, get them comfortable, and then have a conversation with them on camera that helps with your story. All right? So hopefully this video helped. I know it's a little bit different, but I get so fueled up when y'all ask me, what questions should I ask? And all I can think of is that I never have questions when I go to a wedding. I just know pieces of their story. Learn about your couple, get good at having conversations, and I promise you, you'll see instant results the next time you interview somebody. Until the next video, y'all, keep creating, and I will see you in the next one.